Hello and welcome to Unexplained Possibilities Podcast. I'm your host, Melvin the Crimson Taurus, and unfortunately, Rose isn't with us. She still has work and she's dealing with the holiday rush, and you know how that is with retail, and in the area she's in, it's pretty much driving her bonkers, so hopefully she doesn't punch anyone. But aside from that, we have a very special guest returning to our show. And can you guess who that is? Yes, I am talking about Chela Cooley from Create Disclosure. Hey, Chela.
Hi, Melvin.
Now, Chela, you're not alone, are you?
No, I'm not.
Chela, introduce the person you brought along with you.
Well, as I mentioned earlier in our previous interview, that, the most important thing is to not be alone. And so in this journey, I have my very good friend, Nahpsee, and she is with us today. And she helps with Create Disclosure, and she's a really big part of this movement. So it's a great honor to have her here with us today.
Hi.
How are you young women doing tonight?
Awesome. Happy to
Great.
be here.
So, why don't you ladies tell us how you actually met?
Well, that's actually kind of a funny, I guess, complicated story, but I met Chela through a friend, James Tolliver. Him and his wife are actually staying at our house temporarily, and he started talking about, UFO, ET, alien disclosure. He was sharing Chela's information, her DNA charts, and I got onto a teleconference with her and him, and that's initially how I heard about her, and then I reached out to her, and from there, it was kind of, I don't know, I talked to her pretty much every day, and ever since then, it's been fun. It's been a little over a year now that we've known each other, right? Like a year and a half now?
Yeah.
That's how you also got into the Create Disclosure movement, right, Nahpsee?
Yes. I actually started reading, I don't know if, she has another website, Golden Alma Creation, and her husband, Vassus, has Crexlon.com. So I started reading all of their content on those websites, and that's how I initially got into all of the information.
Okay, and it all hit you, like it made sense, correct?
Yeah, right away. It clicked, actually. There wasn't anything that I was in denial or disbelief about. It just answered my questions right away. It just felt right, if that makes sense.
Makes sense to me. Okay, so what is Create Disclosure?
So, Create Disclosure. So, our mission basically is to disclose not only ET and UFO information, but any information that is being suppressed from humanity as a whole. There isn't generally a certain area that we focus on. Anywhere that there is suppressed news or information, we try to get that information and supply it to our followers and our viewers. And we also share, information about creation and life and different aspects of creation that not many people remember or hear about normally on social media or just in the news in general.
How did Create Disclosure come about?
Well, I can take this one because I kind of mentioned this in our interview slightly, Melvin. I touched on that essentially when the idea of Create Disclosure came to me, it was given to me from some of the beings that I have a really close relationship psychically who are based off planet. So one of these extraterrestrial beings basically had a really big mission for humanity, basically like an opportunity or an invitation for a certain group of like-minded individuals to come together to provide humanity with this kind of information that we're talking about so that we are able to essentially help with the disclosure movement. So it takes a certain kind of mindset in order to put this information out into the world, and the information came to me that it needs to be about creating the disclosure movement, not just representing it and not pushing it forward, because the current atmosphere of the disclosure movement is about basically just having a discussion or a debate about it, but not really actively working with that. There's not, in my opinion, there isn't really any activity or momentum or push from the current people in the disclosure movement. The majority of them actually don't work towards creating disclosure for the general public. They just are simply interested in, whatever that they're interested in, but not making it available for all. So that is our goal.
You want to make it widespread. Let it be known that we're not alone, and we should actively go out and show that we're not, Don't just talk about it, but do something about it. Something like that.
Right, and it's not just that we're alone in the universe. It's that we're not alone as humanity. That when humanity has the information that they need, that they're able to unify and come together. So that's why we're able to discuss all topics, because it's about the unification, the unity consciousness, the spiritual relationship that we have as a species of humanity. So of course that involves life off planet and realizing and coming into awareness about that. But it also has to do with coming into this realization that we are a unified human family. So whatever we need to know about health or wellness, or even what's going on in the world in terms of politics or whatever it is, it could be so many topics that people need to have that information just so that they have another perspective to learn from and evaluate.
Yeah, you're right. That is different, because oftentimes with people who, quote unquote, say they're going to bring forth disclosure, they want to, they're pretty one-dimensional. They just want to say, hey, look, they're here, they're going to come, that's it. People are going to be peaceful, and blah, 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 yakety smackety. But what you guys seem to be doing is not only trying to get people to open their horizons a bit more, but also inform them of the not so nice things that the government is doing, as well as trying to get them to behave, that's the wrong word, trying to get them to be more natural, I suppose, with the surroundings and nature, and not so closed-minded, stop turning a blind eye to things that are happening.
Right, awareness is key, definitely.
Awareness, yes, there we go. Now, what do you say to those people who claim, and usually these are very religious people who say this, or ones with an agenda, but they say there is no such thing as extraterrestrial life, it is just us on this blue little planet?
Well, first of all, statistically and mathematically, there's an equation that disproves that, because the probability of life off planet is so high that, it's very wrong to think that, because it's sort of like you would imagine you're the only species that matters. It's sort of thinking about things in an unrealistic way. So you don't realize that, first of all, there's so much variety on our planet alone. So if you imagine that, it's just easy to understand that off planet, they found water on Mars, they found, already the organic, biological life on other planets. It's already been proved by NASA many years ago that there is, basically biological life already existing off planet. Therefore, life already exists off planet, and even science and the biggest disinfo agents ever, NASA, even admit to that. They're not willing to admit to the whole thing. But if people want proof, the proof is already there. So we're just simply sharing that with people and reminding them that this is an obvious fact and this has already been proven. So it's just a matter of whether or not people are going to take this information and use it responsibly or not.
With disclosure, this is just me speaking. I can't really speak for everyone, but I think one of three things is going to happen. One of them would be a mass panic, which I think a lot of folks who are disinfo agents really want to happen, because then it'll be easier to control folks and all that. Two would be absolutely nothing. People ignore it and they'll say it was a weather balloon, the classic. Or three, every single thing that we thought we knew on this little planet in regards to religion, space travel, everything, it just ceases to be important, and a whole new era of, I suppose you could say, life, or I guess a universal door opens up and we are going to move to a better place. What do you think would happen with Disclosure?
I actually wholeheartedly believe that it would be the third option, because most of humanity is already subconsciously ready for that to happen. So it's just a matter of bringing it into their conscious mind, the information, and providing them with it and showing them that it's actually happening. So I'm sure that there will be a very small majority that sit at home probably scared or don't really know what to do. But I think more than half of the collective consciousness would want to participate and actively be involved in that era that you were just describing, of that like new age of how we can live, like, because almost everybody is tired of the way that we're currently living, if you even want to call it living. I mean, everything is just so far from natural and organic and what we're supposed to be doing, and you can see every single day that people are tired of that. So I think once presented with that opportunity, people would grab at it, no doubt. That's honestly what I believe, but who can say?
Chela, do you have any input on this one?
Well, not only that, I think that people underestimate the power of their curiosity. So when you're encountering something that you've never seen before, that's completely new and foreign, people are drawn to that. Even though they're scared, they might be a little hesitant, they might be shielding themselves and trying to keep themselves safe, which of course is what they should do, but not to be paranoid about it, right? It's just the overwhelming need to basically satisfy your curiosity will essentially help those people to transition out of their fear or disbelief or denial in that moment. So it might take them maybe a couple days, but essentially they'll see other people wanting and willing to be engaged with extraterrestrial life to the point where they will want to participate in that as well, because everyone wants to, be welcome, right? And everyone wants to basically be a part of the collective experience. So essentially, people, no matter how they feel about it right now, even if they're closed-minded about it, they will definitely be curious, and they will essentially always want to get to that point where they want to explore that option for themselves. Even if it's just to basically say like something bad about it later, they're still going to want to explore that possibility, I think.
You said collective conscious, or Nahpsee said collective well, you're both saying it. What is a collective conscience?
Well, in my perspective, so every, I guess you can say, species is obviously connected as a whole. So when I say collective consciousness, we all have our individual consciousness, but on a grander scale, we are all still interconnected as humans, and we all still feed off of each other's energy, our thoughts, our beliefs. So when most of us, the majority of us, are leaning towards a certain future or possibility, like that's going to happen if it's more than half. If that makes sense.
Okay, so it almost sounds like a hive mind, but I know it isn't. So it's like a gathering of energy that you're putting out there and using the universal law. What goes around comes around, or you put it out there, you're going to get it back.
Yeah,
well,
in a sense.
And also, I don't want people to think that, we're all like zombies thinking the same thing and wanting the same thing all the time, because we are all wanting our own individual things, but our focus, like what Nahpsee's saying, like what we will allow as a species of humanity, that's what we're talking about as a collective consciousness. So whatever the desire is for humanity as a whole will become the dominant force on this planet. It will create disclosure already because people already want this information. It's just the question of when will we hit that critical mass that enough people are pushing for the information, not just actively wanting it with, say their emotions or their thoughts, but actually participating in that and participating in, say, our movement or whatever it may be, however it manifests. But if people actually put their energy into what they want as well, it will accelerate things a lot.
That's making me think now because I'm looking at it from an individual standpoint, and a lot of times individually we have no idea what we want. I mean, I'm going to be candid here, which I probably should not be, but a few years ago all I wanted was some chick with a slim waist and a big butt, but that never came, unfortunately. However, I'm wondering if, because people can be fickle, and I'm wondering if, since all our wants change so much, could that delay disclosure? Or is this a subconscious want?
You're correct in saying that. It's more about the subconscious experience. So, our individual focus is basically what drives us in our daily life, in our motivation to basically achieve whatever it is that we want. Say, like you say, it's a romantic partner, or it could be something that you want for work or financial independence. So that's unique to us as individuals, or whatever it is that belongs to us. But the subconscious experience of maybe the curiosity of what may exist and being, a little bit interested in the possibility of life off planet, even just the curiosity about that subconsciously, you might not be thinking about that actively throughout your day, but say you look at the night sky and you look at the stars and you're just curious what's out there. Even if you think that just once, that energy basically pervades everything, and it goes into basically an extended period of time. So even it's like you put that positive thought out there and it's released out into the collective consciousness of humanity, our subconscious mind, that's basically all connected. And so that will influence others to think that, hey, maybe it's okay if I want to know that as well, for the other person that might be open to that experience. So it's sort of like our subconscious mind is definitely helping to sway others in a certain direction, no matter what. So that's why it's really important for us to be very clear with ourselves and in what's good for us as individuals, because our subconscious mind and whatever it is that we yearn for or that we're looking for, it will affect others in some extension. It might not be direct, and it might not be immediate, but maybe it will come later. It's sort of like a suggestion that the collective mind of humanity will accept or not, depending on what the majority feels at once.
Rose said something similar to that. Oh boy, I can't remember what podcast exactly. And another person who is in the field of extraterrestrial life and trying to bring about disclosure, Judy Carroll, she said something very similar. And they're in her books and everything. One of them being the Zeta Message. Awesome book. It's nice to see that everyone, what they're saying correlates with one another. With the collective conscience, could that have had an effect on the turkey UFO?
Oh, absolutely. Because if people are curious to know like what the truth is, because if you think about it, globally, there are other countries that have released their UFO files. In South America, for instance, in certain parts of Europe, there's been sightings in China and Russia and all throughout the world where people see it and they realize that it's real in that moment. And there's no doubt in their minds. But say in our media and mainstream media of the United States, everything is suppressed and almost forced upon them to suppress as well. So many different countries on this planet want to reveal this information, want to make this information public. They're craving for that. So in a country like Turkey, that's just another expression of this desire to figure out what's going on. Because essentially everyone wants to know, well, what's the deal in our world? What's going on? Everyone wants to know the truth. No doubt about that. So I think that people invite these experiences in to their lives and say maybe everyone in that area was at some point kind of curious about what is possible. So the chances for a sighting are gaining in strength, right, over time. And so eventually then it just happens in that area. And then they get to see for themselves and evaluate if that's something that they want to experience or not. That's why mass sightings happen. It's an invitation for us to explore that for ourselves.
For those who don't know, on November 27, 2016, over Turkey, it was a mass sighting of UFO. Like, thousands of people saw it. And afterwards, it was a bit of a cover-up going on. Do you guys know about that?
Yeah, there is actually a pretty popular, I think it's a website. I can't remember which one covered it. I think they're called like News 10 or something like that. They covered it.
Secure Team 10.
Yeah. As soon as they started paying attention to people messaging them and putting out videos and pictures, once they covered it, the hashtag on Twitter completely disappeared, which was something like UFO attack Turkey. It was something along those lines, but it completely like got wiped out within 5-10 minutes of that specific channel covering it.
How weird. Now, I know you guys on Facebook, when you were covering the Turkey mass sighting, I don't know who it was, but I know one of you, or was it on Twitter? Anyway, someone mentioned something about how UFO attacks Turkey or whatever. It's very misleading, and it's ridiculous, because it was ridiculous. Nothing happened. It just showed up and said, hey. Why do you think words like that are used in headlines when it comes to UFO sightings?
I personally think that well, for one, I'm pretty sure even the channel covered, that UFO channel, the person that had initially created the hashtag, for one, didn't seem like English was their first language, because there was like some misspelling. But I think a lot of, at least that person, might have chose the wrong word. They might have meant something else when they were saying attack, because they didn't really know how to interpret the situation. Or it also could have been just like fear of the unknown, basically, because I mean that's a control program in itself. So the UFO obviously was just there, like you said, it wasn't doing anything. But as soon as people see something, not everybody, but some people, when they see something they aren't familiar with, their first reaction would be fear. So that could have been a possibility behind that hashtag.
Yeah, that's possible. So I just thought it was interesting. And it's not the first time this happened. Probably not going to be the last. But
yeah, people get rewarded too when they say, negative things about sightings and things like that. So that's also important to realize that if, say, somebody's invited for, like, an interview on, like, mainstream news, they'll be rewarding that person for talking negatively about it, always. And so they laugh about it, too. Reporters laugh about it like it's so funny, like this, oh, no one's going to believe it, even though they're showing the video in the background of exactly what's going on, but they won't treat it with seriousness and respect. So that's also the control program that Nahpsee was mentioning. Just to explain to people what that is, it's something that is basically reinforced in society. So when you do it, you're rewarded. So, we're all based on reward mentality, right? And that's why people say negative things. But in this case, I agree with Nahpsee that it wasn't necessarily like the intention, maybe, because that wasn't their first language. But say in the United States, when people say something negative about a sighting, it's always because they believe that they're going to get some more benefit to talk about it in that way because of Hollywood reinforcing that, the news being, so disrespectful about people's experiences that they just go along with whatever is the mainstream agenda.
And what you're saying, it is so true. I was watching a very old game show called Whammy. On it, a contestant came on, and he said he was visited by extraterrestrials. He saw the UFOs. And it was pretty messed up what the host was doing and the audience. They were making fun of him, basically, playing the do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do, that weird old music and stuff. It was messed up. So you're totally right about that. And is this something that Create Disclosure wants to get rid of?
Most definitely. I mean, around most of our content, anything that has to do with creation or disclosing any type of information that will benefit humanity, it's very important and one of the highest priorities to always present it to our viewers and our followers in a positive light so that they can see, hey, like, wow, I don't actually need to be afraid to, dig into this topic or to learn about this being or to be involved. You know what I mean? So it's very important to us that we're positive when we present the information to people. There is no negativity surrounding like extraterrestrial life or, and anything like that.
Okay. And the reward system you were talking about, it's funny. That's going to be hard to break because, unfortunately, that is something, at least in U.S. society, that is instilled in us from a very young age due to school and then the work environment. You do good, you get an A. You do bad, you get an F. You're a bad person. Go away. At work, you do good, whatever they tell you to do, you get promoted, more money, etc., so on and so forth. And it's something we really need to get away from. I mean, how are you going to rate someone's intelligence with a letter? What is that? Honestly, it's bringing back horrible memories when I was in school. I hated it. That reward system, it needs to go.
Well, we actually have a strategy for that, and I think a lot of people who are trying to make really positive change on this planet right now, the best way for us to be able to do that is actually through social media, because through social media, if the information is being suppressed, we're able to present it on our own terms, and we're able to create a positive, healthy social atmosphere for people to evaluate the information for themselves, to make the decision for themselves, without some other person covering the topic in a negative way like we were discussing, and rewarding people for speaking negatively about it. So, yeah, I don't know, Nahpsee, if you have anything to add to that, but it's really important to make people feel safe, that they can talk about it. And that's why, say with my YouTube, I'm always inviting people to share their experiences, to feel like they can talk about it, because that is the number one killer for most people, is to feel suppressed.
Yeah, exactly. We definitely do that through our social media platforms for sure. We always leave our platforms open for people to respond and comment, regardless of what their standpoint may be. If it's something extremely negative, then usually we won't engage with people like that. But for the most part, it's very positive feedback and people that are extremely curious. And that's initially why we started the meet and greets, which are in person, and we're also starting a virtual one, is to create a safe environment, like Chela said, and a space for people to come to and learn about the topics that we cover, but also to contribute whatever they have experienced, or to just learn more in general, and to feel like it's something they can talk about in public, which obviously isn't the case always. It depends where you are. But if you have a group of people that you trust and that you feel secure around, then you become more comfortable with the information yourself, and then you eventually start spreading it to more people. And that's essentially what we're doing through our social media, but obviously the meet and greets as well.
This might be an okie doke question here, but are there ETs on this planet right now, and are they helping bring about disclosure?
Quick answer, yes. And there's a lot of them, actually. It just takes a certain specialist to be able to recognize that they're there, because they could be a cloaked alien being that appears human. So, they're in the military, they're in the government, they're in banking, they're in politics, they're in pretty much every single aspect of society. So it's very hard to see that it might be actually not a human. It could be something else, because it's seamless. They've integrated seamlessly into our society. They know us better than we know them, and that's for sure.
You're putting ideas in my head. Since they are here, is it dangerous for them to help us?
Absolutely. They put their lives at risk every single time they interact with any human being, because we discussed that briefly a little bit, that the dangers of the military, like if, say, they were to see an alien being, their first mission, basically, or the way that they're supposed to handle that is they're supposed to kill first, ask questions later. So that is incredibly dangerous for them. They're always putting themselves at risk. But they do it happily. They are glad to do it because they see the benefit for everyone and everything. So in a way, they're almost more fearless with their lives than we are as human beings. We'd rather save our skins.
I'll admit, I'm a chicken. Nahpsee, do you want to add anything to that? I mean, not you being a chicken or nothing, not that part.
Well, I mean, I agree with everything she said, and there's also there's no guarantee that humans would back up any ET being if they were discovered helping us here. There is no guarantee that another human would be loving or compassionate or understanding enough to defend that being, even though they are doing it for our benefit and obviously theirs as well. It's, for all of creation, but it's unfortunately the case here. There's probably not as many of us that would stand up for another being if they were discovered somehow, but it's very unlikely because they're very good at blending in. Very, very good.
All right, well, good for them. I know for a fact I wouldn't be able to tell anything apart. Like, oh, hey.
Yeah.
That's actually a good thing if you think about it, because if we can't tell the difference and we're able to treat every being with respect and love and kindness and, respecting their boundaries, then that means we're doing a good job regardless of the species. And I invite people to be open to that experience and thinking of life and creation in a positive way, regardless of what it is, regardless of the association. But that's probably something that humanity won't figure out how to do and master for probably hundreds of years. But eventually everyone will come to see that we're all a part of creation, regardless of what species we come from. And it's a great blessing to have variety of life and species, and we should be excited about that, not thinking we have to isolate and segregate and analyze and break down every single experience we have. When we're living life, we're not thinking about what categories we're going to put our life into, right? We just live our life, and that's how we should treat species.
Awesome way to put that. Okay, so switching gears, there's a lot of information out there, and I mean a lot. There's a lot of groups claiming to want to bring disclosure, expose government, etc., etc. Some legit, others not so much. What's a good source of information that you know of and that people should be aware of?
Actually, Melvin, we were talking about that, with Alex Jones, how you you wouldn't exactly agree with him, but I really have done some research about InfoWars, and I have to say, in general, that has provided, at least me as an individual, with so much good information. And while they might not be specifically about the ET, alien disclosure topic, at least they would present it in a very fair way if there were more information about that would come into more of a mainstream view. So I would say, in general, they provide a lot of good information to get people to question, what's going on in the world. Like, are people in politics and government treating people fairly? What about health and wellness and all of these things? So I would have to say that recently, InfoWars is a very powerful force of information that is very credible, and they have a lot of proof to back up a lot of things that they say. So that is a big thing. And with the ET and UFO disclosure, we were mentioning that YouTuber Secure Team, and he just basically presents any sightings, and he's very objective about it. So I would suggest him as well, because he is just presenting information as it is, not with any opinion about, the sightings. He just says, here's what people saw, and this is what's going on. So I really applaud him for doing it like that, because it helps people to make the decision for themselves.
Okay, so what you see is what you get. Nothing else. It's very vanilla.
Yeah, exactly.
I know this about you two for a fact. You could call me a filthy liar if you want, if I'm wrong, but I know for a fact that you guys are not afraid to call out organizations that aren't exactly what they seem to be. One of them being the Galactic Federation of Light, and their push for the New Age. And I'm going to be honest, I don't really know what New Age is. I hear it, and it's just, when I first heard it, I thought it was some type of drink. So,
if only it was.
Good for you, Mel.
Yeah. So, that's my ignorance. But you call them out. Chela, you even have a video on your YouTube page talking about it. In depth, too. Very good. I recommend everyone check it out. Go over that for a second. What is New Age? Why don't you like it? And who are these Galactic Federation of Light folks?
Well, first of all, Galactic Federation of Light is a negative extraterrestrial group. Let's say it's originally an extraterrestrial group, even though humans have adopted it and basically worship it and create a lot of figureheads that they worship from this organization. And let's just say, even off-planet, Galactic Federation of Light is hated by the majority of extraterrestrial beings because of how destructive they are, how manipulative they are, how dangerous they are for humans. And what they do is they are supporting the Illuminati agenda to basically make all humans enslaved, to make them into the puppets of Illuminati masters, and to basically create them into a food source for inorganic Archon beings. So that's why I'm against it, because, if we're for it, then basically we forfeit humanity. And I see that as an incredible threat. And like I've said before on my YouTube, I'm only going to call things out if I believe that it's a threat to our human species. And that for sure is a huge threat to our human species, because it perpetuates worship, it perpetuates slavery, and it lessens the quality of the individual life, because it makes people subconsciously hate themselves, that they are either not an extraterrestrial or not worshiping an extraterrestrial or not worshiping basically an organization, or, because people worship Galactic Federation of Light. They worship the alien beings that are a part of Galactic Federation of Light. And that creates a lot of psychological harm and damage in each person that does that. They basically get so messed up in their heads that they no longer are able to love themselves, even though they say, oh, I love myself and I have all these spiritual values, but it's actually reverse speak. Now, so reverse speak, the damage of that is these people believe that they're spiritual by worshiping certain things, basically giving their power away to other things. So, of course, when you continually give your power away, your autonomy away, you no longer respect yourself, and you believe that your way to enlightenment is by giving your power away to other beings that you've never even met before or encountered, what happens is you forfeit yourself. And you can be taken over by anything or anyone later, because you no longer have any value in yourself. And so I find that incredibly terrifying that anyone would even gladly accept that, because Galactic Federation of Light makes it very clear that that is their mission.
Sounds like Scientology.
It is very similar to Scientology.
It's Scientology, though. So for some reason, you pay for enlightenment. Like, really?
Exactly. And they're like that, too.
Oh, it's so ridiculous. So, and is that what New Age is also?
Yes, it's a cult-like thing, like you're saying, like where you have to pay to be enlightened. So, you have to go pay your guru for enlightenment. And so whenever somebody is claiming to be a guru or some spiritual hierarchy person, then they don't understand spirituality at all. Because spirituality is about this oneness I'm talking about. It's about respecting all life and seeing the value in everything. So say even if Nahpsee or myself or you, Melvin, have information, we don't think of ourselves as being like the authority over all of these things in life. We just offer what we know, but we don't think that something has to give its power away or something has to worship us in order for us to, basically have credibility. That's just unnatural.
I don't think I like this New Age thing very much.
Well, anything that you have to basically earn or gain by giving something away is just unhealthy. And that's just something that everyone can use as a benchmark to understand if it's good for you or not. If somebody is requiring you to sacrifice your money or your time at the detriment to you and you're not getting anything in return, obviously that's not good.
You also mentioned inorganic beings. What is that?
I will leave that to Nahpsee. I'm interested to see how she'll say that because, that's something that, like in the beginning, Nahpsee, you and I talked about that as one of our primary things that we had to basically understand. And go ahead.
Okay, so basically how we would describe inorganic beings is what we usually refer to them as is Archons, right? So let's say a form of decay, but not in a good way, not the good type of decay, that are able, like they're obviously like on our planet, are able to also cloak themselves as humans, but appear very, very ugly, and it's very obvious. They just don't look natural and organic, but most people won't question it out loud because they'll feel rude. We're almost taught in society not to make people feel uncomfortable. So I think that's like in the back of our heads when we do see an inorganic being, when we see an Archon walking around, we don't bring it up to anybody. We're not like, hey, like, didn't that person look very, very strange? Not in, how would you say? Like, not in even a subtle way. It's very obvious, like almost deformed, like in their face. And I mean, their primary, I guess you can say, mission is to destroy organic life and to take over organic life. And the way that our society is even constructed now is inorganic and has been created by them, in a sense, with the help of other beings that have been corrupted. But we're living in an inorganic manner because it's under their circumstances, like the hierarchy and money and religion, that is all inorganic to who we are. And those are things that they emphasize and things that they continue to push onto us, if that makes sense. And then there's also, I mean, I don't know if we wanted to touch on clones or not, but we also consider that inorganic, but I don't have as much expertise in that specific area. I don't know if Chela would want to touch on that one at all, but Archons are probably the main focal point for that category.
Well, Archons are the primary threat for not just humans, but pretty much everything that's natural and organic and alive on our planet. So that's why we predominantly focus on this, because they mimic humanity so much that people have, like Nahpsee said, basically accepted that, and they're given a certain status and a certain treatment that is kind of above other human beings. So it's sort of like a politician that's always been corrupt and greedy. George Soros, let's say, you know, that's just obvious that that's not natural, that's not organic. And if you look at the pictures of him when he was younger compared to now, it's not even the same thing. So you can tell, like, that's not even the same thing that it used to be. And, you know, people give certain treatment, like a special treatment to Archons that they won't even give to a human that maybe does have a natural deformity, that maybe does have a sickness or an illness. They have to work maybe 5 times as hard. So that's kind of how you can differentiate a little bit between maybe a human that's really sick and needs care and love and acceptance, rather than something that we're talking about, which is inorganic and cruel and evil and basically only here to inflict as much damage as possible and has no beneficial value for us as humanity.
So that's why you often see Archons will be in positions of power, you know, like celebrities, politicians, as Chela was saying. I mean, I don't know what else they would be in besides those 2 groups. But anything where there's positions of power, where there's hierarchy, they find their way into the top of that so that we are worshiping them and giving our power away.
Aspiring to be them. Yeah.
Would they actually be in control of a lot of religious beliefs and stuff?
Yes.
Most
yes. Especially, say, with guru worship and things like that. Whenever something is basically claiming to be a guru or some spiritual know-it-all, the majority of times it really is an Archon. Like, you know, certain churches are basically just full of Archons. You know, you might not be able to even see it, but whenever you walk into a church, there's Archons there, because that is where they absorb the worship energy from people who believe that they have to, like I said, give something away in order to become connected to the truth. They're not even trying to connect to creation because they don't even know what that is in religion, but they believe they have to sacrifice something for just some small piece of information. So Archons are there to basically exploit that.
Okay, they sound like a virus.
They are, yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly like that.
I have a friend. I won't say her name. She said that she was actually attacked by an Archon, and it wasn't physically. It was like spiritually, if that makes any type of sense. And she said it took pretty much everything she had to get that thing away from her. But it posed as a guy who seemed so sincere and handsome and just wanted to be so helpful. But it was like once she lowered her guard, it just pounced. Is that common?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Overly nice at first, like extremely nice and friendly, almost to the point where it's uncomfortable because it's just like too much. To basically get on your good side and find a way in. Because they're not going to present themselves to you as what they are right off the bat, because they wouldn't get anywhere.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Do they even know what they are?
Yes. They're all conscious of that.
Okay. You know, I was going to make a joke here, but I'm not even going to bother. I'm just going to move along. Because that's kind of freaky, man. I can't joke about this. It's a little freaky, and it's not something I want to run into. Maybe I already have, didn't even know it.
Well, they are everywhere, so we have all dealt with that before. It's just, like you said, it's more of a psychological attack. So say, you know, when your mind is really strong and you are really centered in who you are, they can't do anything to you. They can't. And they have no physical power, so we should never be afraid of them, because if you just touch them and push them, you know, they'll just fall to the ground and have no strength. So, you know, they can't fight you. They can't force themselves upon you, you know, without basically having a bunch of things helping them out to do that. You know, so basically, like, people need to know that humanity has the real power in this situation. And it's just that we have to remember our value as a species of humans. And we have to start to appreciate that, you know, as human beings, we're actually awesome. And the only reason why we've lost sight of that is because of these Archons And they have kept us away from ourselves and from connecting to one another as a family of humanity. So that is our invitation to basically experience the beauty of humanity and not see, like Bill Gates is telling everyone that humanity is the virus on the planet. I totally disagree with that. The virus on the planet is the Archons, and they are flipping it around on us to make us think that we have to pay it forward for the right to be on this planet. No, they are the ones that have no right to be on this planet. They are the virus, and they know that. So that's why they want humanity to feel bad about the fact that they're humans. There's so many people who are spiritual who hate the fact that they're human beings. And I think that is a mistake, because to be a human being is a tremendously amazing opportunity to have. And we should feel blessed to be human beings, because we have something so special and so amazing and unique that, is rejoiced everywhere. And it's just up to us to basically reconnect with these values again.
And part of that specialness was the 90 DNA, right?
Correct.
Yes. I never told you this. I probably should have. Well, it doesn't matter. Ever since we spoke about that, I was thinking about that. It's been on my mind for the longest time, and usually how I work, I might be a bit slow on the uptake, but I don't forget. I just keep thinking about it on, and it sounded so familiar to me. And it finally hit me as to why. Do you know who Gene Roddenberry is?
I don't think so.
No, I don't.
You girls just broke my heart, alright? He is the guy who created Star Trek.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's too late. You already broke my heart. It's gone. Anyway, I bring him up because in Star Trek, The Next Generation, that's the one with Captain Jean-Luc Picard, there is an episode where everyone on the ship, they got infected with something and they started to regress back into a type of primitive state, but it was based off of their DNA. And everyone had different DNA, like samples and stuff like that. Not samples, but a type of, I guess, maybe is it a root DNA or something like that? Anyway, it was all different. I mean, one guy had like some spider DNA. One had a capuchin monkey. One of them was a swan or something. It was very interesting. And it made me think about what you were saying, or what you said made me think about that, and then it made me think about Gene Roddenberry, like, oh man, someone is on to something here. Mm-hmm. And, I was just like, okay, well, if I had any doubt, it's gone now, even though this is science fiction. Mm-hmm. The fact that she brought this up, it blew me away. Like, at that moment, that's where it was just, like, I got it, right then and there. So, how did you know about that?
Well, how I know about the 90 DNA is because I was trained about this when I was off planet by extraterrestrial beings. And so I think it's exciting for you to know this, Melvin, that a lot of the really high quality sci-fi shows like Star Trek, like Stargate, SG-1, those are actually disclosure shows. Like, they are actually getting information. I don't know how, I don't know from who, but I can tell you for sure, at least with Stargate SG-1, that is a direct disclosure of things that actually are going on. Some of those things are very close to reality. I'm not saying all of it is, certainly not, because they can't exactly express it in its, full information, right? But they have a lot of basis in truth, let's say, here and there. It would take a long time to go through and basically sort, the truth from basically the fantasy, but the intention behind it and the information is very close, like you were saying. And so that's also very helpful for people, because it's something you can just enjoy and watch, and also kind of get the information right, like how you're saying about the DNA. And that episode, like, I've watched that, yeah, and I know, like, what you're talking about, and that's a good way to think about things, but it's, like, not the whole picture, too, because it's not that everyone has the root DNA of, like, an animal, we might have the root DNA of like a light being or a certain kind of human. So what would happen in that case, right? So it's like you have half of the picture, but it still is more than anything that we've had before. So I really applaud all of these people that have this great strength to put this information out there and to basically inspire people to think about these things and to get excited about it, because that is really what we need. We need the inspiration and the excitement about, what lies beyond, so that we are prepared kind of for what's to come.
Well, that's good preparation, because, like I said, that got me. And I knew it sounded familiar when you were talking about it. I just couldn't remember why. And, you know what? Speaking of the DNA, you're actually doing charts, right?
I am doing charts, and what they are is it's incredibly helpful for you to know what your DNA imprints are. So what is your essence? What are you connected to? What species, basically are a part of who you are? And what part of your body is being influenced by that DNA? So say your root chakra is like the lowest chakra in your body, right? It's like at your tailbone. And so when oh, my root DNA is this, and I have this weird pain in my back, and I don't know why, then you can kind of figure out like maybe what the relationship is with the DNA. So for healing and understanding yourself, it's tremendous, and it will expand your mind. So just simply by reading the DNA chart, it will activate a lot of your DNA for you without you having to figure out anything. So it's sort of like I'm providing people with this cheat in a way to accelerate their DNA activation. So it's really powerful tool for self-awareness and for basically awakening your DNA and awakening your consciousness to understanding and embracing who you are and what you're connected to and what is the most natural part of who you are, so that you're connected to that right environment, to the right activity, so you're able to figure it out faster and with more efficiency. And Nahpsee, maybe you can talk a little bit about your experience with your DNA chart, because you've been working with yours for a long time, and in fact you've gone really far with that. So I'm interested to see what your impressions were of your chart, like from the beginning to now.
Well, I initially, when I first met Chela, which was a year and a half ago, I found out my root DNA very fast, like within the week that I knew what Chela was doing, all of it. So my root is Anukai, so that's a air metal technology being. So basically Chela offers two types of charts. There's the 1 through 10 DNA chart, which is in correlation with your chakras, with your first 10 chakras. So your root all the way to your central channel chakra, and then obviously your 1 through 90 is all of your DNA. So primarily people always start with their 1 through 10, and I think I got my 1 through 10 chart like very fast, actually. I think I purchased it like within like a month or two of meeting Chela, actually, just because everything like clicked so quickly and I just wanted to learn more about myself. And I can just say from personal experience, as soon as you read the descriptions, it just makes sense. Like for me, I was already doing a lot of what was in my descriptions, and she also provides like a suggestion for like each DNA essence. So like what foods you can eat, what type of exercise feeds that essence, what colors you can wear, like what type of environments will feed and activate that imprint. So a lot of that stuff I was already doing with my first 10 DNA before I even like knew what they were, So it kind of just depends like how activated your DNA already is and how in sync and in tune you are with it. But as soon as I started to do more and more, like based off of her suggestions, it allows you to connect to creation on a whole different level. It allows you become more susceptible to the truth as soon as you start learning about your DNA. It's almost like they just kind of like wake up and you're like, hey, like I know about that, and everything feels very familiar because it's your DNA giving, like your conscious mind that information back. You're like waking up your DNA and you're now able to access that information basically if you need to. So when you start learning about beings, it's not like different types of beings and different types of part of creation. It's not like a complicated concept for you to wrap your mind around once you have your chart, you know, just because it opens up your perspective and your consciousness like very quickly, or at least in my experience it did. And then when you get your 90, there's so many options as to what you can do with that. I was extremely dedicated with my DNA and working on it every single day. So it kind of just depends on the person and the individual and what you want to achieve with that. So for me, even just reading your 1 through 90 chart is, I don't even know how to explain it, because you just get so much information, you know, just from that. And you'll even sometimes have like kind of like memories from like certain DNA will like come back to you. That happened to me a couple times as well. So like with one of your DNA in your 90, like a memory, if you were that in one of your past lives, like it could come back to you. It just really depends like how much you're activating it, if that makes sense.
Okay, so it's like the blinders are coming off.
Yeah, definitely. And you just become very aware and open.
Okay, now I can understand Shay's reaction better. When we first started talking, Chela and Nahpsee, Shay and myself, well, Shay is another member of Create Disclosure. She couldn't make it. Shout out to Shay. Hey, girl. And,
hey.
and we were speaking one day, and she brought up root DNA and all that, and I said, oh yeah, cool, I'm not really interested, you know. I mean, I'm pretty sure if she could have reached the computer and slapped me, she would have. What do you mean? What's wrong with you? And
Probably.
And what she failed to realize was I didn't know it was all of that. That's actually a lot of information. It sounds like it's very, very, very refreshing to get, and it's something that anyone with common sense would want to know. But I don't have common sense. And like the Einstein I said something like, yeah, maybe in 2 years. So.
Oh, no.
And I'm going to keep to that. So I have about 1 year and 5 months. 4 or 5 months. So, you know, we'll see. The thing is, I'm content with myself, I guess. That makes sense. So, whatever. But that is very good information to know. Shay, I understand your reaction now. I get it. Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that, Nahpsee.
Of course.
So, moving on. You know, sometimes people, they get too into things. You know, it just happens. It happens with alcohol. It could happen with smoking. But those are, of course, addictive to begin with. You know, the supernatural, paranormal. And does it happen with extraterrestrials? Like, just people get so obsessed that it takes away. Have you encountered that? And if so, what do you do about it?
Well, you know how we were talking about the Galactic Federation? That's a perfect example. It's really sad, actually, to me, because a lot of people who are interested in, you know, extraterrestrials, they are searching for the information. So when they do a search on the internet, the first thing that they see is, of course, that. And so they're drawn to that because it's the most heavily advertised. So they become obsessed with something that basically is giving them nothing valuable. And, you know, but their intention was good in the beginning. Like, they were just searching for the information. They wanted the truth. They wanted to maybe connect it with the spiritual side of extraterrestrial encounters. So, yeah, it can definitely take you into some really weird, nasty territory sometimes. You know, if you try to do an internet search on Google about, say, like, when I say a Zeta Gray alien, what you're going to find is a lot of disgusting pictures that don't reflect the reality of what they are. And the same with reptilians and, you know, any other kind of species. Like, even they'll make negative pictures about fairies, you know, and elves. Like, actually, we were just talking about that, Nahpsee and myself and some other friends, like, about how J.K. Rowling makes elves look like disgusting and terrifying. And, you know, so everything is kind of put into this very negative perspective or imagery. So when people are very genuine and really passionate, and they're always hitting the internet and trusting the Google bot basically for that information, and not really checking in with themselves and their soul, what happens is they have a really distorted picture of reality that is not true. So what they believe an extraterrestrial is, what they believe that experience will be, is based on something that has no truth or no basis in reality at all. But they take it as that. And so, they're continually like bombarding themselves and basically programming themselves into thinking that extraterrestrial life is basically ugly and terrifying, or it's something that is needing to be worshipped. So the majority of people that we've dealt with have been like that. And it's very sad, because I want them to have an authentic experience for themselves, a direct experience with extraterrestrial beings, so that they can see that it's something far more positive than they could have ever dreamt or wished that it could be.
Now that you brought up some more memories, when I started to research and get into not just the ET thing, but the supernatural and paranormal in general, one of the things I looked up, of course, was people who had contact with other extraterrestrial life. And I kid you not, the Galactic Federation was the first thing that showed up, like just out of nowhere. Like, here we are. Of course, at the time, I didn't think anything of it. I just said, oh my god, it's a knockoff of the Galactic Federation from Star Wars? Really? You guys are jokes. And I just went away. So maybe that was a good thing in my case.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'm thinking about some of the people who are like, ooh, what is this? Usually it's younger people, I would say. And
well, I actually think that it depends where you are at, like in your own, I feel like people encounter this type of information at different parts of their life. And I feel like because people are becoming so open-minded, there's so much misinformation that they want to believe in other life and in creation and all of the possibilities. So the Galactic Federation of Light, like, they take advantage of that, especially in young people, like you're saying. So, like, in my instance, like, I never came across them until, like, I knew Chela. So I came across the right information first, like the correct information. And then it just wasn't until recent that I actually learned about them, and I realized how involved people were in that whole thing. It actually really surprised me how big it is.
Here's one for you. When it comes to disclosure, and I'm somewhat skeptical of this, but there is a narrative of spreading love, light, positivity, all the good stuff, I would say. Is that part of your message as well?
Well, those things are definitely great and benevolent and awesome, but we like to include all aspects of creation. So we like to emphasize that those aren't the only things that you should be spreading to yourself and to others. Like, a huge part of that does come from programming through the Galactic Federation of Light. And what that does is that separates you, that in your mind, that separates you from where, from void, from darkness, and that creates fear. So if you're only paying attention and recognizing one aspect of yourself and of creation, then you're not getting the full picture. And that's essentially what they're purposely trying to do through that message of saying, oh, love and light. But it's like, okay, what about void? What about darkness? Why is that a negative thing? And in reality, it isn't. It's just a way to distract our mind and to confuse us, even more so than most of us are, about creation and where we come from and how those two elements and beings work together in unison to create life. Because life isn't possible without void and light. Void is absolutely essential in that process, and people have to understand that. Because if you're not recognizing that about yourself and about creation in general, then you are never fully going to be able to accept and love yourself, as we were talking about earlier, because you're just essentially shutting that part of yourself off. You are denying it. So you're actually creating more distress and confusion within yourself than most people know, if that makes sense. I don't know if Chela wanted to add anything to that.
Well, just so people don't get confused when we're talking about void, the best thing I can suggest is if you guys want to know more about that, I suggest you look at my video, Dragons in the Void, because I explain exactly what void is and what that element actually is. So if you guys want to know more about that, I suggest you do that before, making some assumption, oh, the dark is the evil. No, it's not like that. Like Nahpsee is saying, it's the source. It's the main source of creation. It's creator, So I just hope that people understand that, because I know that probably even people listening to this, the program is so heavy, whenever we say like, oh, it's so dark, it's so negative, and that kind of language we have to get rid of, because like Nahpsee is saying, we are creating separations and damaging ourselves internally, psychologically, emotionally by speaking like that, because maybe you, whoever's listening, you might actually be a void elemental as your root DNA. So if you're talking negatively about associating the darkness with evil, you're basically calling yourself that. And so, you could be creating a lot of harm to yourself without even knowing that, because that's just, the way that we talk in society. That's a way that we're conditioned to think about things as everything being dualistic and separate and negative towards one another. Because the void and the light are unified and they're balanced and they love one another. It's not that they've ever been wanting to destroy one another, like in religion. They say the darkness trying to overtake the light. That's never happened. It's just a psychotic impulse of religion to basically even believe that that's possible, because it doesn't make sense. When it's dark outside, that's perfectly natural. When the lights inside your house and the sunlight that rises, like all of these are a part of our environment. So why are we afraid of things that are naturally a part of our world and our direct experience even? That's just crazy.
So what you're saying is stop fearing something that's natural. I mean, it's a part of you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a hard narrative to change as well. I mean, due to just so many years of people saying, oh, go into the light, not the dark, stay out the dark,
Well, people, I just like to mention, people can, whoever's listening, I don't know if you follow us on Instagram, but our Instagram is Create Disclosure. If you look at our bio, we have a SoundCloud, and our second audio recording on there actually addresses this topic exactly, if you would like to learn more about it in depth. And Chela goes into how this is actually a control program. So for those of you that want to learn more about it, that's where you can refer to. Our username on SoundCloud is Create Disclosure. Pretty simple. Most of our stuff is all just Create Disclosure.
With Create Disclosure, what is it that you want people to take away from it?
On a personal level, and I think most of our team could agree that it's important for people to become curious and open-minded, and we really just want people to expand their horizons on all levels and to be open to the experience of other beings and just even the possibilities on this planet of envisioning what we could all do if we, activated our DNA and started cleansing and healing and working together on a healthy and sustainable level. Like we want to reconnect. We want to create a space for all of us where we can share openly, and we just want people to become curious. We want you to take anything from what we are sharing with you, and hopefully it inspires at least one person to do something about our current state of living, because I guarantee almost everybody could agree the way that we're living right now is not what we want, and it does not meet our expectations because it isn't organic to who we are. So if everybody could, in their own way, find a unique and individual way to make a change in your own life or in your immediate environment, that's like all we could hope for, is this, instead of sitting and waiting for something to happen, take some type of action, whatever is possible for you in this moment at this time. Like, take that action and apply it to your life. And as soon as you do that, it will affect the people around you. And no matter whatever, how big or small, it will affect somebody. And that's the entire point, I guess, for me. I don't know if Chela wanted to add anything.
Well, the only thing I can really add to that is it's really important for people to understand our individual potential and the potential of humanity as a whole. So that's why we create Disclosure to cover whatever needs to be revealed, whatever needs to be shared, because it's about benefiting the human experience and benefiting all species. So we just want people to know that, this is about the bigger picture. This is about all of us thriving in community with, peace and balance with one another for the first time. And when you have this information, it is so much easier to connect and relate and appreciate one another. So when you find out what your DNA is, you're excited about learning about the DNA of somebody else. You're excited to know all of these possibilities of what exists and what our potential is and how we can take our power back. So we're going to provide all of that and invite everyone into this experience, because we're excited to meet anyone that is open, that is curious, that maybe hasn't even made up their mind, how they feel about ET or UFO experiences, but maybe they're just curious about something else and they want to know more about what's going on in their world. We accept that and we embrace that, because wherever you're starting, it's perfect. And everyone should realize that at your fundamental base level, you are perfect. And it's just that you have to remember that, and you have to remember how to experience that and to connect with that part of yourself. It's like we have to relearn everything. So that's why we're providing this information. And we are really excited to have people participate with us and to watch us as we're growing in this movement. And we just welcome everyone. And I hope that everyone enjoys what we have to offer and that we have more possibilities like this in the future.
Okay. And earlier you mentioned your meet and greet. How does one get there, or if they can't get there, how can they still somewhat attend over the internet?
Okay, so if there's anybody listening that lives in the Bay Area in California, so like Union City, Fremont, Newark, Berkeley, SF, all of those areas, we have in-person meet and greets. And basically you would just have to follow us on one of our social media handles or all of them. So you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Basically, we're just under Create Disclosure. And as soon as you follow us on one of those, we would supply you with that information. We give you all of the details, time, location, everything. And for anybody that is not in that immediate area or is international, we are starting virtual meet and greets this month. And it's actually coming up very, very soon, this coming weekend on the 17th. So we'll be doing that, I believe, through Skype, but we'll be sending people information about that as well. Just follow us on one of our social media platforms and we'll provide you with that information.
Okay, now I've asked this before. I'm going to ask again. What can we do to bring disclosure to everyone?
Expose the truth whenever you can. I know it sounds really simple, but when say you know something and you know that it might be a bit difficult to bring it up with someone, the thing is that that's like your opportunity to provide that person with a chance to basically go through that information for themselves and figure out how they feel about it. So, the biggest thing is don't hold back for political correctness or, just to be like societally like polite, because when you do that, you don't know, maybe you are limiting that possibility for that person to learn and expand their life experience, because maybe you have information that when they're asking you for it and you don't give it to them because you're afraid of ridicule or judgment or whatever it is, you're doing them a great disservice. I'm not saying throw yourself out there in the world and like get on your soapbox and put it in everyone's face. It's just the thing is that when people ask you for the information or they ask for your opinion, be honest, because that's really what people are asking for in that moment. And if you're just doing it for your own self-preservation, you're not helping yourself and you're not helping others. So it's really important for people to feel that they can love themselves and respect themselves enough to share the truth, whatever the truth is, when the opportunity comes up. Because if we're truthful as human beings, we're going to go really far. And I know that's a really hard practice and it's terrifying to do that, but the result is amazing, and it's a beautiful thing that we can experience together. So that's the best way to create disclosure. We all know what's inherently true within us. We just have to honor that, and we have to defend it and stand up for it no matter what.
All right, and I think that's a good place to end it. But one more time, so everyone can know, what's your social media handle?
So Instagram, SoundCloud, and our Facebook page are all just Create Disclosure. And then on Twitter, it's Create Disclosure as well, but instead of spelling out Create, it is CRE and then the number 8 and then Disclosure, if that makes sense. But everything else is just spelled normally for Facebook, Instagram, and SoundCloud. Just Create Disclosure.
And also, if you guys are looking for more information, you can follow myself, Chela on Facebook, and also my YouTube channel. There's a lot of information on there, and we're going to continually add more videos and more content. We have a lot of amazing things coming up, so you guys can follow, subscribe, and send me messages, and yeah, we have a lot more coming.
And all those links will be in the description below. So check it out, guys. Also, don't forget to follow Unexplained Possibilities on Twitter and Facebook. With that said, remember, guys, there are things that go bump in the night. And I'm not talking about a jolly old fat man. So why don't you say hi and share some of those milk and cookies? Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.